Welcome to Influence Unpacked with Marian Balinoff, the series where we explore what drives success in influencer marketing for mobile apps and games. Influence Unpacked is powered by AppsFlyer, bringing you insights from top marketers who innovate, elevate, and succeed.
So today I'm joined by Piia, Global Influencer Marketing Manager at Bolt. Hi, Piia. Thank you very much for being here with me today.
Hi, Marian, and thanks for the invite.
It's lovely to have you, really. I'm really excited for this conversation. Before we get started, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm Piia. I'm the Global Influencer Marketing Manager at Bolt. I've actually been at Bolt for over 4 years. Different roles, so the influencer function has kind of swayed between performance and brand, but I've got to try on different shoes, I would say. And prior to that, I worked in media, I worked in PR, I've been kind of a local influencer myself. I had a fashion blog in high school, so this is where I kind of got the bug of influencer marketing, and it all started from there. Yeah.
Did you get any sponsored deals while you were a fashion blogger? Yeah?
I did. Like, I'm from Estonia, which is a small market, but I did follow a lot of foreign blogs. So I kind of felt always that I was a bit ahead of the curve. Yeah, I did have some sponsored deals locally and from like abroad and some events and stuff. Yeah.
That's exciting. All right. So you started even your career as an influencer yourself. So you definitely know this industry. Before we get started into the influencer marketing strategy, can you tell us a little bit more about Bolt and the different apps that you advertise? Because I don't know if everyone's familiar with the brand.
Yeah, of course. Bolt is currently active. I think it's in over 50 markets and 500 cities globally. The main thing that people probably know Bolt by is our rides app. So where you can just book a ride, go wherever you want, whenever you want. But we also have a lot of different aspects to it. So there's regions where Bolt is a lot more than just a car you can book. You can order food on Bolt Food. You can have micromobility, so scooters and e-bikes to make getting around the city even more easier if you don't have a car, which I think is the ideal in like a modern city. People don't need to have a car. So what we essentially try to do is offer an alternative to the personal car through our services that make life easier living in a city. Yeah, and it's super varied, I think, and super kind of multifaceted because we, as I said, we do have a lot of different regions, different products live in different countries and regions. And in our marketing and influencer marketing, we also need to take this into account to like what's live, what products they have, what services they have, what's even the local context, for example.
Of course. So as you said, different types of services, loads of different local markets. You've mentioned 50 different markets. Obviously, it means a lot of localization, a lot of like culture specific marketing. How does the influencer marketing strategy looks like as a whole for now?
At the moment, so basically I'm the only person with influencer marketing in my title that works at Bolt.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I'm doing everything myself because we actually
I hope so, because that would be a lot of work.
I mean, with some like really good tools and streamlining, it might work, but it would definitely be a lot. But yeah, luckily we have a really strong local marketing team who take care of their own respective markets and regions and actually are the people doing the legwork on influencer marketing. So yeah, I kind of have no team, but I also have a team of like 35 people, which is super nice. We're kind of, in terms of strategy, at the moment, we're in between, and I think this applies to a lot of companies probably with the way social media is working right now. We're kind of in between organic and paid and trying to understand what the perfect balance between the two is. Because when I started at Bolt over 4 years ago, we had quite a strong performance marketing program, something similar to probably what Loop does or what Daniel Wellington did back in the day, where we had influencers posting for us every month. They had a promo code and it just kept rolling and rolling. And we had 100 plus influencers in like 15 plus markets. And it was all very standardized. And that was the day when Instagram was mostly photos. It doesn't seem that long ago, but at the same time, it feels very long ago.
I know, yeah, exactly, with all the new features, but
yeah. So when video started to rule more and TikTok came into the picture more, then again, that also meant a lot more localization and a lot more local approvals. So like the example I always bring is that when we had an influencer photo and an influencer text to go with it, I could always just Google Translate and be like, yeah, approved, go ahead and post. But then there was this Portuguese video, which to my ear, obviously it sounded Portuguese. I could understand that it's filmed in Lisbon. The video looked really nice. It ticked all the boxes. I had the video transcript. Everything was correct. And it went live. And then the local marketing manager was like, this girl is Brazilian. It doesn't fit our market. Like, yeah, they speak Portuguese, but it's a different Portuguese. I was like, yeah, okay, I get you. Like, and this was kind of a wake-up call. Well, not really a wake-up call, but kind of a significant moment that made me realize that, okay, we need to switch something. So overall, we understood as well that the performance side wasn't working a lot. The local marketing teams just started growing, and we took a more organic shift in our social media anyway. So we kind of a few years ago shifted influencers away from this super heavy performance program into, I'd rather say, creative collaborations and organic creator pushes. So at the moment, the way it works is that influencers are basically like this content creator machine for us, for our social media pages, and also in some ways for our ads and UGC, which we are trying to move more into probably in the next few years. But yeah, because the local teams really do work with a lot of things, and the HQ teams as well on social, then influencers for us are in some markets kind of a way to keep our socials active as well, because we do have a lot of regional and local pages.
Yeah, of course, it must be like multiplied and a lot of pages to handle. So you've mentioned you started from massive like creator programs where like influencers and creators were probably promoting the apps using, I don't know, gift codes, discount codes and stuff like that. And then moving away from this, which was performance really focused, to something where you're leveraging sort of all the benefits from influencer marketing. So creating content for your social media and then leveraging those creators in your marketing in general and more localized. Does this mean you're not looking into AI at all anymore?
We do it on a more, I'd say, larger level. So whenever there's a local campaign, then probably there's other stuff happening in addition to the influencer. So the campaign metrics aren't so specifically tied to this one influencer post or this one influencer campaign, but the campaign as a whole and whatever else is going on around this influencer.
Okay, that makes sense. And so when you work with creators who also create content to leverage on your social media, is it whitelisting? Is it that you do co-branded posts? Like, how does it look like for you? And what have you tested? What have you seen works best?
We mostly do co-branded posts, so just that it appears on both accounts, just because the paid media aspect hasn't been that important for us up until now. So we kind of try to take advantage of the creators' own organic impressions and their audience and kind of build our platforms and our socials through that as well.
Leads me to another question, obviously around the UGC side of things, right? Because you've mentioned doing a lot of UGC, you've mentioned working also with creators. To me, the difference between the two is you work with an influencer that has an audience, whatever that size is, that you leverage into creating some content that will reach their own audience organically. And then on the other side, you've got UGC creators or IGC influencer generated content, which is meant to reach an audience that is not necessarily going to be the influencer's audience, but an audience outside of that, because you're going to put media behind it. And so to me, there's always this question of balance between obviously the price of an influencer, because they're going to have their own audience that you're going to be paying for basically, versus a creator that might be very small, as UGC, for which you're not going to pay a lot because they don't necessarily have a big following, but you're going to be able to leverage this content in ads and push it to an audience that is going to be broader than theirs because they might be very small. So my question to you is, how do you look into this? Because we've talked about it before, but you've worked with a big creator, you've still leveraged their content in ads. So where do you find this balance, and what makes most sense for you and for Bolt in general?
Yeah, lots to unpack here as per the name of the podcast. But yeah, I think the balance is super relative. and it's hard to give a numerical value, for example, like what percentage of the fee you should put for the paid media rights or something like that. And it depends on the context, etc. Like with influencer marketing anyways, I feel like whenever someone has like a really concrete question, then there's never a concrete answer, but it's like, yeah, there's so many aspects to take into consideration. So the big collaboration that you referred to was quite the recent one. We worked for a campaign with Drew Binsky, who is like a really big travel creator. He's visited like all the countries in the world and he has millions of followers. And we did a collaboration with him where he co-posted with us. And then we also got the paid media rights. As an organic collaboration, it would have been really expensive. We usually measure organic with CPM. But with the paid media rights, actually, the video did so well on paid that it really justified it. And I think the rights were about 10% of his fee, which in like net terms is still quite a lot, but it kind of paid for itself eventually. With smaller creators, I feel like you really can't apply the same metrics. Like if someone gets 500 euros for a UGC video, you can't really just only pay 50 euros for the paid content, because the value that you get from it is so big that it feels like it doesn't feel fair. Yeah, exactly, to the creator. And a lot of the times I actually look based on the content quality. And if I have a brief or if I have an idea in mind that, okay, for this campaign, we need a creator that's really good at vlogging, or we need a creator that's really good at jokes that land, that like POV videos that actually are funny and relatable, then I'd rather pay more to have the exact kind of content that I'm looking for rather than just get it done. If that makes sense, like, yeah, obviously it's
for the creativity of the creator, because they know what's going to work. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But obviously there's these UGC campaigns where you just need something basic and you need someone to get it done. And then I don't really think it makes sense to pay for the audience reach as well, when you just know that you need a skill and someone with that skill set to get it done. The other thing with paying for an audience is that I think sometimes people in the social media world or the influencer marketing world, they can be really skewed towards how much people who are not so online all the time actually know influencers and how familiar those faces actually are. I've had so many conversations with friends or even with colleagues who have a broader role than what I do, where I'm like, yeah, this creator, how do you not know them? They're like, I have no idea who that is. And to me, this is like always on my For You page, someone whose content I always see. And it's like, okay, if I paid for this creator and also for their audience and then put paid media behind it to kind of justify that, okay, we're showing the audience that we're working with this really big name, then most of the paid media audience wouldn't know this person probably. So to them, it doesn't matter if it's a famous person like an influencer or if it's just a UGC creator, because they just need to see the message actually, or they just need to see a likable face rather than a familiar face.
Exactly. And that's all the nuances to it. And I think that's what makes it sometimes very complicated to do and replicate successes. When we're talking about content that's been created by an influencer for their own audience that we then push through paid amplification, and this is a topic that I've actually been working on for the past few months with one of my clients, and I would be keen to get your thoughts on it. We are creating short form content where we're promoting an app organically on their influencers' channels, but then we want to also boost that content. My question to you is, do you have any best practices or learning specifically regarding what sort of brief do you send to those creators? Because we want the content to perform organically. So ideally, we would want a transition that is going to be sort of authentic and seamless into, the sponsored part of it. But at the same time, in ads, we know like the sooner the product or the app is shown, the better it performs. So is there a sort of formula or way that you've found where you can find that right balance between the two? Or do you treat it as two different sort of objectives?
Yeah, this is the exact same question that we're battling at the moment. So I don't really have a perfect answer for you.
I'm reassured I'm not the only one like struggling with this topic.
Yeah. I think that it's quite rare that organic videos or like videos that are organic first or primarily organic would perform really well on paid as well. Obviously, it depends. Like there's so many variables.
There's always
that we
an
already
exception.
discussed.
Exactly.
But to be honest, like at the moment, I think I would give different briefs, or I would have the creator make the organic video and then clip it for paid, or maybe even re-edit it for paid, so that essentially they're the same base material but different videos.
Have you found this to be cost efficient?
Yeah, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, because that was actually something I was considering doing. So either working with obviously much smaller creators for you not to pay a tremendous fee, but at the same time, yes, they could produce 2 different videos or actually produce 1 video and just give us the raw material for us to be editing it in the right way. But at the same time, it's also a question of like, can you edit it in the way that it would work for UA when it's been created for their own audience? It's kind of always hard to know sort of the content that you're going to get, because as much as you do your research and you know the influencer and you know the type of content, you send them a brief, but I'm always on the side of like giving them as much freedom as possible. Even though you might review the concept beforehand and approve it, you never really know what sort of content you're going to end up with. So I find it's always a little bit tricky. You negotiate those usage right, or the raw material before even seeing the content. I don't know
But that's also
what's your
a
opinion.
totally okay thing to do, is to negotiate the usage rights after you've seen the content, to kind of put aside take into account the risk of organic videos flopping. But if you see the video is still actually really good, or it could work on paid, then you could be like, oh, hey, by the way, this could even be a negotiation tactic with the influencer. Like, yeah, it didn't really perform the way your other organic videos have performed, which we've seen a lot, is that audiences or algorithms, even if the video is like incredibly similar to what they usually do, it just doesn't fly. And this is also why we're looking more and more into paid, is because organic feels like gambling, and you don't really want to put all your money into gambling. You can put some of it into gambling, but you also need to have like a steady thing. So yeah, if the video doesn't work organically, then maybe it's a way to pay less for the usage rights. To like, hey, we still really like it. We don't want your work to go to waste. Like on a human level, you've done all this work. We want people to see it, which is the main goal anyways with any ad that you're doing. To like, hey, let's test it out with a different edit for a month, for 2 months. If it works well, you can always extend the rights. If it doesn't, you're like, okay, this kind of format doesn't work for us. Maybe a different influencer works better.
Yeah. I think it's a great argument to leverage the fact that it might not have performed well organically, and then obviously negotiate the right for a month to begin with, and then obviously prove whether or not this is profitable before you actually negotiate the right for more than that. Do you have any advice or sort of rules that you follow when it comes down to negotiating usage right? Is that like a maximum percentage of the total fee that you follow in terms of duration, in terms of markets, anything that could help someone that's never done it before?
We don't have like super concrete rules. Also because the way influencers price their usage rights varies so much across markets. Like obviously it varies across influencer size. So the bigger influencers or the more professional influencers know their fees, they know what the like playing room there is, and some of the smaller influencers maybe have never even been asked about usage rights. So they're like, oh, this is something I can ask money for, or they don't even know that it's something that they can ask money for. So this, yeah, first of all, it depends so much on the influencer. It depends so much on the market, because there's a few markets that we've noticed where agencies or influencers don't have a flat fee for usage rights. For example, like 1,000 euros for one video for 1 month, something like that. But they want to know the investment that we're putting behind the video in paid, and then they're going to price it accordingly. Make your offer based on that, and we'll see how it fits into our budgets, because yeah, we also just need to take into account how much room we have. Like if, for example, we paid less for the creator post, then we have more money in the bank to pay for the usage rights. And if it goes a bit over the original budget, then it doesn't really move us that much. But I think maybe a good indicator for anyone who hasn't done it before would be to take it as a percentage of the media budget. So obviously you have some kind of a number that you're willing to put behind it, or behind the whole campaign or the one post. So if your media budget is 10K, then I'd say don't pay anything over 1K for the rights. 10%-ish.
10%. Okay, that's a good rule to go by, and I think it's already a good indicator for people. Right, so we've talked a lot about ads and the paid side of things. I would love to deep dive into the different markets that you are advertising in, because you've mentioned 50 countries. That's a lot of them. Can you give us an overview of like the countries that you're marketing?
We're not doing influencers in all those 50 markets, first of all.
Thank God. That would be a lot of work again.
But to be super rough, then the regions are Northern Europe, Central Europe, Eastern Europe. Like bulk coverage in Europe is really good. Like if you travel across Europe, then in most capital cities, at least you would be able to order a ride for yourself. And then we have our core African markets, which are Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa, Tanzania as well. We've gone a lot more into the Middle East recently. For example, launching Dubai. There's also Southeast Asia and New Zealand recently, and Canada recently. So they are all over the place, actually.
Might not be 50 countries, but that's still a lot of them.
Yeah, like a lot of coverage in terms of cultures, in terms of time zones, languages as well, which is a big thing because obviously the local people speak the local language. But when we used to have the performance program, and to be honest, this was all run from HQ with 1 or 2 people, the 100 influencers per month, then okay, like approving posts was fine. You can do it with Google Translate. But there are some markets where it's not so common for people to speak English. So it was really hard to do outreach even, or negotiations with influencers, because I don't speak, I don't know, Azerbaijani, for example, and they don't speak English, and it's not something that I can really blame them. Like if you don't need it, you don't speak it, you probably learn a different second language at school. So there were definitely some markets where the local effort was needed just for communication.
That makes sense. And so in terms of like differences between countries, obviously you've mentioned a lot of different regions in the world. When it comes to influencer marketing specifically, we've talked about having obviously local people in your teams that will help with the different cultural differences. Is there anything that, struck you or that you did not expect from certain region, or anything that was, outstanding?
I'd say that as a global brand, that actually Bolt has so many different faces in the local markets, and that the local marketing really influences that, what our brand looks like locally. This is one thing. But the other thing is also that just the way social media looks in different markets is different. Like something that to me might be like to my aesthetic or to the vision that I'm used to seeing on social media, bearing in mind that I live in Northern Europe, I speak English, so it's quite skewed towards America and UK as well. Then some of the markets or some of the influencer content has felt at times really overacted or like really intense, a bit cringe even. Or like the quality is just so different. But then when I go to the local person, like, hey, do you think we should ask for a reshoot? They're like, no, this is fine. This is what my social media looks like. So I'm like, okay, maybe if we pushed a really European looking video on these markets, I don't know, in Kenya or Tanzania, that would feel super off to actually the people that we're trying to target, which is kind of a challenge. And obviously with like global content, we need to be mindful of stuff like in New Zealand, in the UK, in Malta, cars drive on different sides of the road. So if we have a video that's filmed in Germany, then we can't really push the same, even if it's like a non-speaking, so there's no localization. Then part of the localization actually is that the car needs to be on the other side. Like it's these kind of small things that you eventually start to think about.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. And I think that's why it's really, really important to get support from people on the field that are in those local markets. Because as you said, like there's so many times where I review content for some countries where I'm like, this is terrible. But I'm not the target, right? I'm not in that country. So I'm completely
Yeah,
biased and I
exactly.
shouldn't see through my lens. And so, yeah, again, like if you don't have people on the ground, maybe support yourself with agencies that are, local, and then will be
Hmm.
able to give you advices on that side of things. Because otherwise, if you just want to apply the same brief to all the countries, it will completely feel off, basically.
Yeah, and it might be a thing that if you have global content or the same concepts going live everywhere, or even like concepts stemming from talking points that are relevant to us, but maybe they're not relevant in Paraguay or maybe they're not relevant in South Africa, and the content doesn't work, then maybe you don't need to question the content quality or the influencer, but the brief itself.
No,
But yeah,
exactly.
I think that Bolt as well is kind of unique in a sense that we're an app and we're promoting an app and it's very like internet based still, or like a non-physical thing, but our service also has a very big physical aspect. So we need to take this into account in everything we do. It's not only an online service, although
No,
it stems from an online service. Like we're dealing with real people, we're dealing with drivers, like really practical questions, like if an influencer wants to film, where do they get the car? Does the car have our branding? When they order food, does the bag that the food comes in have our branding? And this is way beyond the marketing team. Like we need to be in touch with all the local teams in a sense, or we need to have someone in touch from local marketing with the local teams to kind of facilitate the fact that we get the best content out of it.
no,
And it's
exactly.
like, yeah, this big complex system that feels kind of really easy or just, yeah, stuff happening, but everything needs so much like little detail work as well.
Yeah, I guess you must have learned a lot along the way and thinking about stuff you would have never thought about. And now it's like, okay, I know I need to think about this, and that to make sure that everything goes right. And I was actually wondering, because I know I've used Bolt in certain countries, but are you available in the whole country, or are you available just in certain cities? Because you might have influencers that have an audience like in, I don't know, Germany, but they might not live in Berlin, for example. And so I'm wondering, how do you go about that?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And uh, I'd say like our business is definitely more city based. It depends on the country as well. But Germany is a good example because when we launched there, then we had scooters in, I think, over 100 cities or something. But the ride service was only available in a few cities, and they started like unlocking or launching one at a time. So yeah, we at that point we put a lot of thought into where the influencer is based and where the influencer's audience is based. So looking really heavily into the audience statistics and the fact that we would, even if it's organic, which you obviously can target super perfectly with influencers, but kind of maximizing our chances of reaching the right audience and looking at if the influencer has a big audience in the city where we're live and where the audience can use us.
Now, looking ahead, everybody's talking about AI in different areas for influencer marketing, whether it is for tools and replace all the manual work that we're doing, like contacting influencers and contracting them, or about AI influencers themselves. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think is going to impact our industry?
Yeah, this is a bit of a paradox, but working in social, I'm a little bit of a technophobe, and I really hope that AI influencers don't become a thing. I just really, really hope they don't become a thing, and that the trend eventually will move towards authenticity, maybe smaller influencers, maybe like even more niche influencers, rather than this kind of dead internet theory that you're not going to be able to understand if a video is AI or not, and just kind of infinite content for no reason at all. I also think that this might bring on more real world interactions with influencers. Like I'm already seeing this trend of influencers doing book clubs, influencers doing run clubs, like bringing back meetups and stuff like that, which was kind of in the beginning of the whole influencer era, like a big thing. You can actually see the real person, and probably this independence of the creator, I really hope is going to become a thing a bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the fact that, in every discussion that I have about influencer marketing, one word always come out is authenticity, right? And I think it is really at the heart of influencer marketing. And it is something that we would definitely lose if all the influencers were becoming AI, which is hopefully
Yeah.
not what's going to happen. I
Yeah.
definitely see probably AI influencers more on the brand side, being like sort of ambassadors, sort of personas that can be created to embody the brand values and resemble maybe certain types of customers. But I do not really see it happening for influencers in general, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't really, maybe I'm just super naive, but I don't like thinking of the reasons why people follow influencers. Like you have this closeness, you have this interest in a real person, you have a kind of relatability or even looking up to someone or trying to like be like someone. But then why would you follow an AI influencer? Like only for the aesthetics? But then there's at one point there was this big onslaught of like incredibly general kind of lifestyle influencers that really like obviously they have a value, obviously they have a certain type of skill, they have a really specific aesthetic, like this kind of, I don't know, there's maybe I'm dissing influencers a bit much here, but this kind of Nordic fashion girl or the East Coast, I don't know, for example, the Christian Girl Autumn vibe. Like there's so many of these people who are like carbon copies of each other. And they kind of, for the general public who isn't super locked into influencers, maybe dirtied the profession of an influencer a bit or kind of made it a bit too general. Like, you're an influencer. Like, you promote the face cream and then the next day you promote the lipstick and then you have another deal. And this is all you do. Like it's super vain when in reality, the people who focus more or bank more on their authenticity really have a hard time standing out, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean. And I
no,
think
definitely.
a lot of these like AI influencers or these aesthetics are based on these really super general lifestyle influencers. So this is also where the authenticity gets lost a bit.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, we see from those normal influences, but are more lifestyle, more the perfect kind of life, the engagement rate is actually much lower. They might have millions of followers, but people are actually following them passively. And this
Yeah,
is really not what
exactly.
you're looking for in influencer marketing. And so I feel that probably this is what would resemble AI influencers, because in the end, what people want is also like the imperfection of life. And you see that, for mom influencers showing like postpartum, showing like how difficult it is actually to have a newborn and just like not the brightest picture is what people are actually looking for more and more nowadays. And it probably wasn't true a few years back, but I think nowadays it is definitely getting towards that sort of direction in terms of content. So hopefully this is not something that obviously AI can reproduce anything, but if it doesn't feel true and it is not lived, it shouldn't resonate the same towards this sort of audience.
Yeah, I agree.
We've talked a lot about short form content and paid media behind it. What about long form content? Is this something you've tried?
We haven't really tried it out a lot just because the way our strategy and our like campaign cycles are built up. But it's definitely something that I'm super interested in myself in because that might be one of the like we've talked about organic and paid and I kind of feel that it's getting harder and harder to hack organic or to move away from this like okay let's see how it works out, but with long form content and if you do it a bit more strategically and if it fits your brand really well, if you have a really good host or a really good face with it. And if it is a bigger investment, then you're probably also willing to put more time and effort into it and kind of keep this long form content actually running for a long time to make it work or make it maximize its potential. Then I think the long form can actually be one of the last resorts to hack organic or to still stay organic without any paid media push, but there's also definitely ways to make long form work together with paid media. I think podcasts and brand podcasts are a really good example of that. Also mini series, for example, on YouTube, they recently launched the Formula One and Amelia de Moldenberg series where she learns to drive with the Formula One drivers, which is such a good creative idea, I think. It's a familiar concept. It's a relatable concept. Everyone's been driving or like tried to drive. And if you're not good at it, then like who better to help you than the best drivers in the world? It's kind of similar to carpool karaoke, as it still has this kind of one space that it takes place in. Yeah, it has a celebrity factor. Basically, this is, I think, a really good, just a creative idea for a long form content. And it doesn't need to be like 30 minutes. Like long form in this day and age can mean 10 minutes.
It's very true. It's very true. If you can captivate the audience for 10 minutes straight, that would be already a massive win. I agree really with you. And I think this type of content will eventually be part of like marketing strategies in general. But I also feel like it's a shift in the industry that needs to happen in terms of objective, because you wouldn't be able to measure ROI or performance for that. And it's more going to be a long-term branding goal of being present and visible.
Brands kind of acting as producers themselves and taking the extra leap and doing something that, and obviously this relates to like bigger brands. If you're a local, small, I don't know, bakery who has never done influencer marketing and is dipping their toe into social media, then obviously you don't need to start the YouTube miniseries. And it doesn't make sense for you to start the YouTube miniseries. But yeah, for long brands, I think brands moving more towards being producers and giving the audience a reason to follow the brand and not only the influencer you're collaborating with is also something I'm seeing more and more.
Yeah, and we see it like with also influencers themselves, like creating content outside of their own social media, like creating mini series and stuff like that. So yeah, very curious to see what's gonna happen in the future. All right, we're almost at the end of the episode. I want to wrap it up with a quick fire round of questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. First question: what's one thing marketers should stop doing in influencer marketing?
I think they should stop looking at influencer marketing separately from other things, but rather look how influencer content can be repurposed, how it can be reused, how it can work together with everything else that you do.
And I would even add to that, like, look at the impact that influencer marketing has on your other channels, because it is there. What's one strategy, tool, or tactic that you think marketers should start applying today?
This is something that I think applies to every marketer and that I always recommend people to do is just to stay on top of trends and scroll mindfully. Like, I don't mean that you need to replicate every new TikTok trend on your brand social media, but just when you're having your evening 30 minutes TikTok scroll or your lunchtime TikTok scroll, then when you like something or when you save something, just take a moment to think like, okay, why did I do this as a consumer? Like, what in this content made me like this? Share it or save it, and then see if something comes up that unifies the stuff that you personally like. Ask the same things from your colleagues or your friends to just try to understand what makes people tick when they're organically in that space. Kind of like media diary even, or like maybe taking a bit of an academic strategic approach to just being on TikTok.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's a great way to make scrolling not feel so guilty in a way.
If you think about it.
Exactly. But don't forget, this might not apply to all your markets. So make sure that you have people in the right markets advising you on the cultural trends in each of those.
Yeah, but this again, like, sorry, I know this is a quick fire, but
It always leads to more discussion. I'm
yeah.
happy to discuss more.
Yeah, but this again is like a human element to things. I always also say to people who ask, like, yeah, I'm not sure what content I should put out or what type of post should I even do. Then my first question is like, okay, but what do you like? Like, what do you follow brands for? What do you follow people for? Do things that are authentic, relatable, that give you some kind of information. If humor is something that relates to your brand and you like humor content and you know the humor in the region, just lean into humor then if it works for you. If it doesn't work, take a break, lean into education. See if this is something that people are going to start saving and sharing. Maybe you can build yourself up to be a voice of, I don't know, banking or something. Be mindful of trends, but don't run after every trend, but just think of why they work, I'd say.
Exactly, because otherwise it's not going to land, because you're not going to feel authentic in that way, because it's going to be forced. So it all comes back to authenticity, as always.
Yeah.
One last question before we wrap up the episode. What's one proven approach you think marketers should continue using for long-term success?
This is purely based on my experience at Bolt, but I think we won't be ditching the approach to keep things quite localized and having this local view and local approach to our marketing. And it might turn into globally confirmed concepts that work and then those executed locally. But I think, just the luxury of having so many people on the ground in different markets is something that I'm really mindful of. And I really think that if a brand speaks your voice in your market, then it makes much more sense than if it speaks a really global voice.
Exactly. I think it makes such a difference. And as you said, it's a luxury to have that many people on the ground that can advise you. But at the same time, it is, as you said, like a lot of investment on your side as a brand to look into this specifically for each of those markets. But it makes such a difference from a consumer's perspective to be like, okay, that actually applies to me specifically. And that's why it resonates so much better than having a generic content, as we were talking about before. All right. Well, thank you so much, Piia. It was really lovely to have you with me today. Where can people find you and learn more about what you do?
I think the best place would be LinkedIn, to be honest, in the context of this podcast. Yeah.
All right. So you'll be tagged in the post when the episode goes live so people can see you and follow you directly. So that's it for today's episode of Influence Unpacked. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and follow for quick actionable tips on influencer marketing for mobile apps and games. And if you're looking to dive deeper, check out my guide on the AppsFlyer website. It covers everything from setting up your first influencer campaign to best practices and tools to measure your success. You'll find the link in the post, and I'll see you next time.